What a match we just witnessed at Villa Park, folks. I'm still catching my breath from that last-minute drama where Marco Asensio, yes, the PSG loanee, became the hero of the hour with a brace that turned the game on its head. Villa coming back from behind to seal a 2-1 victory over Chelsea. Now that's the kind of football that keeps us coming back for more. Let me paint you the picture of how this all unfolded. Chelsea came into this one looking sharp, and early on, they were the ones dictating the tempo. Enzo Fernández, who's been finding his groove lately, put them ahead with a classic poacher's finish. The kind of goal that doesn't make highlight reels but wins you matches. Or at least, that's what Chelsea thought at the time. Neto, who's been quite the spark for them recently, whipped in a dangerous ball across the face of goal, and Fernández was there, right place, right time, to tap it home. You know what's interesting about Enzo? This was his 14th different scoring game in European football, counting his time with both Benfica and Chelsea. And get this, in all previous 13 matches where he's found the net, his team went on to win. Well, that streak had to end sometime, right? Talk about a jinx. Chelsea's first half was textbook stuff. They were creating chances, controlling the game, and their XG of 1.61 told the story. Palmer was doing Palmer things, Neto was causing havoc, and even Reece James was having one of those games where he looks like he could play any position on the pitch. The stats don't lie. James won possession 5 times in that first half alone and completed 27 out of 28 passes. That's a 96.4% success rate if you're keeping score at home. But football, oh football, it's never that simple, is it? Villa Park has been a fortress on Saturdays. Before this season, they'd lost just one of their last 22 Premier League home games played on Saturdays. And while they might have been down at halftime, there was this feeling, this electricity in the air that suggested the game was far from over. Enter Marcus Rashford. Unai Emery made what turned out to be a masterclass substitution at halftime, bringing on the Manchester United loanee. Now, here's a bit of trivia for you. Rashford hadn't registered a Premier League assist since October 2024, when he set up Garnacho against Brentford. Talk about perfect timing to break that drought, right? The momentum shift was palpable. Villa started creating chances, pushing Chelsea back, and then came that moment of controversy, the equalizer that needed VAR's blessing. Rashford to Asensio, the ball in the net, the flag up, the crowd holding their breath. These are the moments that make football what it is. After what felt like an eternity of deliberation, VR confirmed what Villa fans were desperately hoping for. Everyone was on side, and we were level. And this is where we need to talk about Chelsea's recent form, because it tells us something fascinating about where they are as a team right now. Get this, they've lost 4 of their last 8 Premier League matches. That's more defeats than they had in their previous 32 games combined. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about a club that spent more money than some small countries' GDPs, and they're struggling to close out games they're leading. The stats tell an even more damning story. Chelsea have won just 1 of their last 5 Premier League matches where they've scored first. And if you want another head-scratcher, they haven't won any of their last 3 games where they were leading at halftime. That's not the kind of record that gets you Champions League football, folks. Now let's talk about that second half, because it was a masterclass in how to turn a game around. Villa came out looking like a completely different team. The Rashford-Asensio connection was starting to click, and you could feel the tension building. For Asensio, these were his first goals in claret and blue, and his first time finding the net since scoring for PSG against Strasbourg back in October. Talk about picking your moment. The chances started flowing for both sides. Palmer, who's been Chelsea's golden boy this season, had opportunities to put the game to bed. There was this one moment, I can still see it, where he was slipped in behind by Caicedo, and both he and Martinez, Villa's keeper, slipped. It looked like a certain goal until Konsa appeared out of nowhere like some defensive superhero to clear the danger. Those are the moments that change games, that swing momentum, that make heroes and villains. And speaking of heroes, Marco Asensio. Let me take you to that 89th minute goal because it deserves its own spotlight. The buildup was beautiful. Rashford playing a 1-2 with Tielemans from the corner, then finding Asensio in the middle. The Spaniards' first-time volley might not have been the cleanest strike we've ever seen, squirming through Jorgensen, but I guarantee you, not a single Villa fan cared about the aesthetics. When that ball hit the net, Villa Park erupted. This was more than just a win. This was a statement. What makes this victory even more impressive is that Villa had failed to win any of their last 6 Premier League matches where they were trailing at halftime. They'd lost 4 and drawn 2. So this wasn't just bucking a trend. This was shattering it. The XG totals tell their own story. Villa ended up with 2.56 to Chelsea's 2.12. When you consider how dominant Chelsea were in the first half, that's a remarkable turnaround. Let's talk about some of the individual battles that shaped this game, because there were some fascinating duels all over the pitch. Cole Palmer, who's been Chelsea's talisman this season, showed flashes of brilliance. There was this moment in the 65th minute where he weaved through 3 Villa defenders like they weren't even there. The kind of skill that makes you sit up in your seat. But that final ball to Nkunku was just a bit too heavy. And that's been the story of Chelsea's season, hasn't it? Almost, but not quite. And how about Neto? He was absolutely everywhere in that first half, drifting from his expected position on the left to pop up on the right for that assist. He's now been involved in 2 goals in his last 3 Premier League matches. The way he took on Maatsen for that opening goal, that's the kind of direct running that defenders hate. You could see Villa struggling to get to grips with his movement early on. But let's give some credit to Unai Emery here, because his halftime adjustments were spot on. Bringing on Rashford changed the entire dynamic of the game. We've seen Rashford struggle for form at United this season, but sometimes a change of scenery is all you need. The way he linked up with Asensio for both goals, it was like they'd been playing together for years, not minutes. There was this moment late in the game that really summed up Villa's transformation. Maatsen and Rashford combined to play in Malen, and suddenly Chelsea's defense looked vulnerable. Jorgensen had to come up big with a save, but it was the intent, the confidence in the attack that stood out. This wasn't a team hoping to nick a point. They were going for the win. And we need to talk about that Asensio volley, because technically, it wasn't the cleanest strike you'll ever see. But there's something poetic about a slightly scruffy goal winning a game like this. The ball squirming through Jorgensen, you could almost feel the collective intake of breath from the Villa Park crowd before it hit the net. Football doesn't always have to be beautiful to be dramatic. The stats tell us that Chelsea had their chances. 2.12 by G is nothing to sniff at. Palmer and Neto each had 2 good efforts, and on another day, we might be talking about a comfortable Chelsea victory. But that's the beauty of football, isn't it? It's not just about creating chances, it's about taking them when they matter most. Villa's defense deserves a mention too. That block from Konsa when Palmer looked certain to score, that's the kind of defending that wins you points. It's not glamorous, it won't make many highlight reels, but without moments like that, Asensio's late heroics wouldn't have meant anything. You know what makes this result even more interesting? Villa's record against London teams. They had this incredible run of 10 consecutive Premier League wins against capital clubs between April 2023 and February 2024. Since then, they've only managed to win 4 out of 15 against London sides. So this victory, it feels like a potential turning point. The closing stages of the game were absolutely frantic. Those 7 minutes of added time felt like an eternity for Villa fans and probably flew by for Chelsea supporters. You had Bailey getting released down the right, taking on Cucurella in the box, but just running out of space. Then there was that last gasp Chelsea corner, with James's delivery being dealt with by Konsa and Bailey. The kind of end-to-end stuff that makes Premier League football the spectacle it is. This result takes Villa up to 7th in the table. Ace, and they're now just 1 point behind Chelsea. But it's more than just the points. It's about momentum. Villa had been without a Premier League win in their last 5 games before this. To come from behind against a team like Chelsea, especially after being dominated in the first half, that's the kind of victory that can transform a season. For Chelsea, this has to feel like 2 steps forward one step back. They showed in that first half why they've spent all that money, why they've assembled this squad. The link-up play, the movement, the control, it was all there. But football matches last 90 minutes, or in this case, 97, and they just couldn't maintain that level. Looking ahead, both teams will take plenty from this game. For Villa, they've shown they can go toe-to-toe with the big spenders and come out on top. The Rashford-Asensio connection looks promising, and if they can build on this performance, that top six finish is very much in play. For Chelsea, there are positives in how they controlled that first half, but questions remain about their game management. When you're leading away from home, you've got to find a way to see it out. Before we wrap up, let's just take a moment to appreciate what we witnessed today. 2 loan signings combining for both goals, a VR decision that actually added to the drama rather than killing it, and a last-minute winner that had Villa Park rocking. This is why we love this sport, folks. This is why we keep coming back for more. 7 points now separate 5th from 8th in the table. And with performances like this, you get the feeling there are plenty more twists and turns to come in the race for European football. Villa have shown they're not out of the fight yet. And Chelsea? Well, they've shown both their potential and their vulnerabilities in the space of 90 fascinating minutes. This has been Across the Pitch, over and out.